Hello everyone. Today I'm going to paint same portraits on different apps with default oil painting brushes and see what happens. You already know by the title that one is going to be Procreate and the other one is going to be IbisPaint X. I have created the sketch on Procreate and used it for both the apps because I love the sketch brushes here a lot. Those have a paper-like texture which I really prefer for sketches. Let's start with IbisPaint X, which I'm more familiar with. If you have watched my other video about oil painting from scratch, then you would know all the basics here. And if you haven't, then you might want to check it out. So, as usual, I have used the soft oil brush with canvas texture for painting. I started with the background first and then went for the skin and hair. I'm just basically filling up the color right now and then I will go for the blending. If you want, you can paint everything in single layer. And that would force your brain to think how to fix things if you mess up, just like you do traditionally. Most of the time, I actually do that, but this time I didn't. Because I don't have that much confidence with the oil painting brush for Procreate. So, to make things fair and square, I played it safe for both the apps and used multiple layers. Now that we know how I apply colors here, let's see what's happening in Procreate. So, from this brush list, I have used two brushes for oil painting. The oil brush and the turpentine brush. Mostly just the oil brush. In the past, I have used this default oil painting brush, but it's so chaotic that most of the time I gave up and moved on. But recently I wanted to give it a try again and painted these clouds. Just after that I decided to do this comparison video as I was suddenly more confident. Still, there was a little bit of worry because portraits and environments are different things, but I think it worked out fairly okay. I think you can see what I was trying to say by it's really chaotic. Also, it has a built-in smudge property, so when you add strokes back and forth, it kind of blends and dilutes the color. So it makes things trickier. You need to get a hang of it first, otherwise it would feel just too difficult to control. I had to constantly change the brush size to make things work properly. It took me way more time here than IbisPaint X just to feel up the color. I'm not even talking about blending. I'm just filling up the color and still it took way more time. Maybe if I keep painting with this same brush, I will be faster. But I don't think so because it's a really tough brush. Here, the painting brush itself is more than enough to create a roughly blended look. I used the smudge brush for blending, but honestly, if I had to blend with just the usual brush, I could have done that as well. The smudge brush here is super powerful, so that's great. So we are done with filling up the color here. Now let's see what's going on in IbisPaint X. You can see that I am adding the hair strands here. So in case of IbisPaint X, the hair strands were very controlled and the brush moved exactly the way I wanted it to. So it looks very neat and clean, almost perfect. Personally, I like that neat and clean appearance. But in case of oil painting, things are not that calculated. It's more like letting yourself go free. You cannot find that much freedom here. It's very precise. On the other hand, Procreate oil painting brush is so chaotic that it's almost uncontrollable. I tried to get those perfect hair strands so many times, but it just won't let me. My perfectionist brain was screaming, but I couldn't do much. Letting yourself go is nice, but if you let it go completely, then things are going to be too messy. So if I compare the two brushes from the two apps, they literally have such polar opposite personalities as if it's almost like a story plot. Like, I'm not even joking. One is extremely disciplined and the other one is completely carefree. Now you can think about the rest of the plot. Back to IbisPaint X and let's see how the rest of the process went. In case of blending on IbisPaint X, I generally use the usual brush or go for the mixer brush. If you don't know what is mixer brush, you can check out the brush customization series. For blending, I have used the mixer brush of soft and rough oil brush. You can set your own parameters for the mixer brush. There is no set rule. I would highly suggest you to avoid using smudge brush because it's awful most of the time. It will ruin the sharpness of your art and will create something weird which is not really preferred. Now, it's time to see the painting process of the flower on Procreate first. I basically used the similar method for painting and did less blending here. Let's also take a look at the flower painting on IbisPaint X. The approach was a little bit different here, but the painting process was same. Finally, it's time to introduce the effect that makes it looks like everything is on a single canvas. So what I'm going to do is copy all the layers and paste it in a single layer so that I can mix things up with the smudge brush. First, I mixed the edges of the portrait with the background and made some random smudge strokes to get that messy aesthetic which I really like. You can skip that second part if you want to, but personally I really love that. I have to admit that the smudge brush here is much more efficient than the one in IbisPaint X. It doesn't really create that weird color when you mix different colors. Currently, I am doing that messy aesthetic effect on random areas. It doesn't need to be properly mixed. It should look like as if you have applied a brush stroke without any color on it, just to mix things up a little bit and make those strokes visible on canvas. Now, let's see what we are going to do for IbisPaint X. Here, instead of using the smudge brush, I have again used the mixer brush. The color mix level of the brush should be almost 100% for this effect. In that way, you would not need to color pick every time and would be able to simply blend things out as you wish. The first part of mixing the edge of the portrait with the background is similar. But for the next part, I'm going to do something different. For this part, I'm going to use the straight ruler for the sharp smudge effect. And after that, I'm going to randomly add vertically straight strokes to create the similar effect that I did on Procreate. Now that we have seen both the painting processes, it's time to reveal. So this is how they look side to side. I tried my best to make the two portraits look as similar as possible. I think from this distance, the Procreate one looks softer and a little bit messier than the IbisPaint X version. Let's take a closer look. We can now properly see how different are the brush strokes for each painting. In case of IbisPaint X, everything is more or less smoothly blended. But for Procreate, we can see more brush strokes even if it's blended. And also, if we compare the intermediate zone of portrait and the background, we can clearly see why the Procreate version looks softer and messier. We have already talked about the hair strands, but let's check it out once again. I must say I still like the neat and clean hair strands more. I think this part looks really similar except for the random smudge strokes. In case of the left one, the smudge strokes are thicker compared to the right one. The right one, as in the Procreate version, looks finer and more natural. So I think I prefer that more. Now if we see this part, we can see in the right one, the strokes resemble realistic oil painting strokes a lot more than the left. And that is exactly what I meant by looking more natural. So overall, I like the Procreate version better than the IbisPaint X one. You might be thinking, why the comparison when we all know Procreate would be better here? But that's not the point. The point of this video is to show you that with apps like IbisPaint X, you can still achieve a great quality art which is not that much behind of Procreate or any other high-level softwares. Of course, the Procreate version has more realistic vibes to it, but that doesn't nullify the fact that both the arts look almost similar, even if done on different apps. So the most important point is your skill than the app itself. Sure, the tools and advanced stuffs can help you do things quicker or make things look a bit more professional, but in the end, it all depends on your skill and knowledge. So don't feel bad that you don't have Photoshop or Procreate or Clip Studio Paint. Just paint with whatever you have, increase your knowledge, and you would be able to make masterpieces. And do not forget to let me know which version you liked better. That is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned how I use different apps for painting. And as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Till then, take care.